From Central Indiana's #1 news source, this is Fox 59 Tonight.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us here on Fox 59 Tonight. I'm Cameron Riddle. Thank you for downloading our Fox 59 Smart TV app. It's on Roku, Fire TV, Samsung TV, and on Apple TV. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of the conversations we have every night at 8 o'clock here on Fox 59 Tonight. On the show today, we'll be talking about a conversation that is coming to Indianapolis. It's a conversation that impacts a lot of people, especially when we're talking about incarceration and what happens to people after they get their freedom once again. And if we talk to people who go through these stories, there's just a whole lot that they would tell you that nobody talks about the support that is there, or the lack thereof. And so there's a film called The Alabama Solution that this is going to be streaming online through YouTube. This is a HBO original. But you'll get a chance to see it in person with a group of people in a screening here in Indianapolis coming up on Sunday, November 9th. This is part of a special screening hosted by Reels and Roots. And one of the co-founders is here in the studio. Dr. Russell J. Leday is back here on the show to tell us about the Alabama Solution and what Reels and Roots is doing to spark a conversation about men and being incarcerated and the system both inside and what happens when they come out. Dr. Leday, how are you, man?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you so much for having me on here.
I'm glad to bring you back. We talked earlier in June. What we refresh us? What happened in June? And then how did it turn out?
Yeah, we had our first screening, To Live and Die and Live, directed by my frat brother, Mr. Qasim Basir. And that film talked about addiction and recovery and family. And it turned out amazing. The Phoenix Theater was so helpful in getting us to have nearly 100 people there. And that screening was amazing. And it led to us now being able to partner with HBO documentaries to bring the Alabama Solution to Indianapolis, Indiana.
So tell us about Reels and Roots. What your mission is like, and then the connection to the Alabama Solution.
Yeah, Reels and Roots is a nonprofit organization started by myself, along with Mallory Leday, Kona Williams, and Brother Mutia Powell. And the idea behind Reels and Roots is to start conversations around films that communities need to watch. And then we need to have meaningful conversations around what does progress look like for us, specifically in this case with regards to incarceration and the treatment of people who are incarcerated, and what does their life look like after reentry into society. And so we're so proud to be able to partner with HBO documentaries, the Validus movement, One for Justice, and just put together something that Indianapolis, Indiana needs right now. A conversation around what does the future of incarceration from a humanity standpoint look like in a way that allows for respectful treatment of humans, people who are just trying to get by.
This is kind of abstract, but when the movie that I always think about, I believe that was that Shawshank
Redemption?
And it was the guy he's been in jail forever. I believe that was Crooks.
Yeah.
And he kills himself.
Yeah.
Because he goes out into the real world and can't. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And that's really a small part of the movie.
Yeah, it's a microcosm.
But it's a huge part of like everyday life. And I think about that when people who have been incarcerated, now they have a record, but they've paid their debt to society.
Yeah.
But now, they want to go out and they want to have a good job and they got a family to feed. They still have responsibilities, but they have this hanging over them. And so, I was thinking about this in a conversation with somebody. We were talking about, there's no law that says you can't hire a felon or that you can't hire. It's at the employer's discretion. But when you think about it, if you don't give them that job, what's the alternative?
Yeah. I think there's so much to be said there. I think the prompts and the conversations that you're having in your head are the ones that have led to Reels and Roots existing. These reels, these films that talk about the issues of the day or the issues of history, or specifically in this case, the treatment of people who are incarcerated, the secrecy, the unexposed moments. Um, you know, Candidly, I have a lot of very close friends who are previously incarcerated. The stories they told me, and the things I've personally experienced while being in incarceration facilities, whether it's at the juvenile level or at the adult level, are quite scary. And I think there is a pathway forward. I think these conversations that we will have with Reels and Roots at the Phoenix Theater on November 9th at 4:30 p.m. at a free event, by the way, will be meaningful. To bring lawyers in the room, to bring doctors in the room, to bring community members in the room, to bring formerly incarcerated individuals into the room, and to have a robust conversation after watching the Alabama Solution is really gonna cause us to rethink, what are we really doing? Are we watching, reflecting? Are we discussing and growing? Or are we just being entertained?
You're not doing this alone. One,
Yeah,
this will be at the Phoenix Theater, so you're partnering with them. But there's also another gentleman here in the studio, Jamarcus
yeah.
Fields. Tell us who Jamarcus is. What's the connection? And then Jamarcus, you tell us what you're doing.
So I am one of the leaders in the Validus movement. I am also the founder and executive director of Iron Sharpens Iron WASP, which is a nonprofit organization that I created to kind of mentor justice-involved individuals and at-risk youth, to give them facilitators and peers that actually look like them and can understand the struggles that they've gone through and
Mm-hmm.
walk alongside them to assure that they have a pretty safe
Mm-hmm.
assimilation back into society post incarceration.
Um, how much of this film and what you guys are doing is about, well, I guess we can break down, is about avoiding incarceration, getting through incarceration, and then post incarceration?
Yeah, it's a good question, man. I think all three of those segments need to be discussed. I think this idea of figuring out ways to improve our communities, improve access to jobs, improve access to better education, safety within our communities can definitely decrease the likelihood of someone entering into the justice system. And then, unfortunately, there are inevitably going to be some people who will enter into the justice system.
Mm-hmm.
And what does that journey look like for them to 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 traverse through this justice system in a way that feels humane, that feels respectable, that doesn't lead to mistreatment and maltreatment? Is a conversation to be had during this Reels and Roots event. And then there's obviously this reentry space, right? Like I have personally delved a lot into what the reentry space looks like, specifically from a mental health perspective. Obviously, I'm a training child psychiatrist and adult psychiatrist at Indiana University, and that's played a role in my life personally, in my career. But I think in this role now as the co-founder of Reels and Roots, this conversation around what does reentry look like after such a tumultuous experience in the incarceration system is going to require a lot of undoing and a lot of support, for which our communities honestly have the resources to really support people in these systems. But I think the part that will make this always difficult is if we don't galvanize together and have conversations that lead to progress and solutions. The Alabama solution is really, you could think of it as like the spark for a fire for us to have a true community-based conversation at the Phoenix Theater around what does the future look like for people who are incarcerated? What does it look like for people post-incarceration? And then how do we as a community come together and stop looking at these people who have unfortunately made a mistake as the
Mm-hmm.
worst people on the planet? We need to throw them away,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to people who are truly an asset to our communities. And really something like, from an experiential perspective, I've learned more from Jamarcus and Brother Mutia, who are obviously people who have engaged in the justice system, than I've learned from so many of my professors,
Mm-hmm.
because they have real life experience to bring to the table, and they have the 2020 hindsight of, hey, here's a different way to go about doing this thing. I've tried a million different ways. Here's a really good way to go about doing it for success. And so, partnering with the Validus movement and Iron Sharpens Iron and WASP is like, it's perfect for Reels and Roots, because we have people at the table who truly understand what these people in this film are going through, and also what our community needs to hear.
Why as you alluded to a moment ago, you're a doctor, an actual doctor.
Yeah.
Who's got a full schedule. Why is it that you want to host screenings? Is it because you like movies and you just want to get people together?
Nah. It's actually not so much about the films. I understand what films do. I understand that films get people's wheels turning, people's mental wheels turning. And honestly, most of the time when people finish a film, they have thoughts, they have questions, they have comments. And we are rarely afforded a space for us to have those conversations as a community about what does the future look like for us after this film. We can watch this film, be entertained and walk away, or we could watch this film, have a robust conversation and talk about what does the, post-filming plan of action look like for Reels and Roots or the Validist movement or Iron Sharpens Iron or the community at large, thinking about making progress for people who are incarcerated.
Let's bring in let's play today's the trailer is the word that I'm looking for. Let's play the trailer so that you can see so everybody can see what this movie is about, and then because I want to know how you came across the Alabama Solution and said, let's have a screening and a discussion with that. I want to know that whole process. So let's take a look and see what the Alabama Solution is about.
I know you're grieving, but I want to tell you that your son was murdered. They sweep stuff underneath the rug all the time.
If you're an inmate in Alabama prison, you're probably praying every night that nothing bad happens to you. It's dangerous and volatile. It could explode at any moment.
I mean, it's corrupt. That's all you can say. They're hiding.
We're finished.
What are we finished with?
Film me.
Why?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hold on a minute. Police in here.
Oh, okay.
Don't talk.
We had record numbers of people leaving out of here in body bags. They don't want the public to see what's really going on the inside.
How can a journalist go into a war zone but can't go into a prison in the United States of America? The state is settling one lawsuit after another. There's no consequences for their actions.
It's not the inmate that's killing them folks. It's for guards.
There's an argument that there is some systemic problem within all of our facilities, and I wholeheartedly disagree with that.
How can you defend this?
That one guard, he knew something. I could tell he was a liar.
We are going to pursue it based on the facts to the fullest extent that we're allowed.
Their biggest fear is to see us come together on one accord. We got to take our power back. We have to come together and make a stand that our life is worth something.
I came to prison in 1985. I know what you folks are doing.
We have been taking life and death risks to get this information out while we still can.
All right, so that's a preview of what the film was about, which talks a lot about what happens in prison. Yeah. And so I think I know where I'm going to go now, because Jamarcus, would you want? Okay, first of all, in that the guy talks about how a journalist can go into a war zone but not into a prison, which resonated with me because we get emails from people and calls from people who are in jail. Or their families saying, hey, X, Y, and Z is going on. And, we do try to look into it, but that's an area where it's like, you can't get in. Yeah. That's a hard one. And so on one point, it's like, it highlights that prison is just not a good place, a place that you don't want to be. Like, you could avoid, like, it's avoidable. So let's just, it's so bad that you can't even fix it. Like, you don't even want to be there. Yeah. And so, Jamarcus, you talked about the prevention. That's almost one way to prevent. It's like, look, it's so bad, it's hard. Once you're in there, what You're just in there.
Just in there, yeah. And that was one of the things for me. I was incarcerated at the age of 18. So, I often say I went to sleep a little kid and had to wake up a grown man. And didn't know what it meant to be a grown man. So, I'm literally in real time learning these harsh realities. So now it's about paying it forward and letting a lot of the youngsters that are traveling this road know the realities of what they're walking into, what they could potentially be stepping into, in hopes of preventing them from having to go down that road.
Do you share, what was your prison or jail experience like? And how do you explain that to say, look, you don't even want to go there?
Yeah, just kind of give them the real, it was such a tense environment. When you think about the overcrowdedness of prisons, when you think about, individuals just being away from their families, the younger, the worse it is, not knowing how to navigate that space. And then the trauma that everybody is carrying, like the smallest thing could blow up into the biggest thing, and somebody could potentially lose their life, and that's not an environment that you want to grow up in.
In this conversation, so after the video, there's going to be, after the film, you guys show it, there's going to be a conversation again, and I'll show the flyer so you can get the details. That is at the Phoenix Theater. That is 4:30 Sunday, November 9th. What's the conversation going to be? How do you kick this off? But I guess I want to ask first. You saw this, came across this film. How did you decide to have a screening? What do you want that screening to be like, that conversation afterwards?
Yeah, I think you asked a good question of why did Reels and Roots pick the Alabama solution as our next screening? I think it was obvious. The core of Reels and Roots is to have honest conversations about issues that plague our communities. And films really allow for that to be ignited, those conversations to be ignited. And Alabama Solution undoubtedly talks about a topic that our communities often are plagued with, which is people, unfortunately, end up in the justice system. There's a tumultuous experience that they go through in the justice system that is rarely talked about in an honest way. And then subsequently, we are left to respond to the behaviors and the habits and the way with which they live their life once they reenter society, without processing what have they been through and what can we do as a community to assist them in healing, and also figuring out tools that they can use to progress the rest of their lives. We just assume that they'll come out and they'll just be able to hit the ground running. And that's just not realistic. And so what the Alabama Solution does is it sets us up to have a conversation with a local lawyer, along with myself, from the mental health perspective. That'll be moderated by Kona Williams.
Lovely, that Kona, by the way.
Yeah. We are beyond excited for that. Around what does healing look like? Because we can get so caught up in the shock of seeing what happens inside of incarceration facilities and lose sight of what we need to do to respond. And I don't want that to happen. And so I want to make sure that the conversation doesn't allow for us. Having sticker shock is appropriate. What is not appropriate for us to be so paralyzed that we can't move forward with progress. And what those solutions are will come from the conversation, the organic and honest conversation we'll have with the community. We'll have doctors there. We'll have community members there. We'll have people from the finance sector there, people who are previously incarcerated there. The community, the amalgam of people who make up Indianapolis, Indiana, need to come together to have this conversation, because at the end of the day, if we don't work together and we work alone, we won't go very far. And I think what Reels and Roots is trying to do is galvanize the community to have conversations that lead to progress. And movies allow for us to have the igniter. People love movies.
what does that progress in Indianapolis look like? Meaning, what is it that you're seeing that you're like, this is a problem?
Yeah, I think there are some community-based interventions that we need to make sure that we stand up, whether it's the technological advancement with regards to reentry and access to resources, whether that be job acquisition or mental health resources, health resources, with regards to having a primary care physician, being able to actually get to your parole appointment or your probation appointment, help with literacy, help with food, all these things that lead to progress for those people who we know are they behind the eight ball. The moment you get out of prison, you behind the eight ball. And if we don't recognize help, it's going to be just like you said earlier. Like, what's the other solution? What do we want them to do? Go back in? No, that's not. It's not fair. It's not humane, and it doesn't make sense. You know, I think what Reels and Roots is doing right now is figuring out ways to have conversations about what the solutions look like in a way that allows for all the voices in the room to contribute as opposed to just a few people.
What do you say to people who say, hey, look, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Good luck to you.
Yeah, that's difficult to do when you don't even have boots.
Mm-hmm.
You know, back in the early 1960s, this same question was asked to Martin Luther King. Why don't we just tell people to pull themselves up by their bootstraps? And he said that it was a cruel jest to ask someone to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, knowing that they don't even have boots. We talking about bootless people. You've been gone for 10 years. What boots do you have? And not to mention, the goal of these systems is rehabilitation and correction. Part of rehabilitation should be to set you up for success. That's just what makes sense for us as a society. And there's definitely more than enough resources that are being poured into these systems to allow for there to be not only rehabilitation, but resource allocation. It's just whether or not it's in the best interest of our communities to make sure that we fight for that.
Jamarcus, in your everyday work, this is what you do is help people who've been justice involved. What do you see as one of the main problems?
Yeah, I would love to see more community involvement. That's what makes the screening of the Alabama solution so powerful, because it evokes a conversation with the community. While, of course, Indiana is in Alabama, we deal with the same issues here in Indiana.
What are some of those issues?
The overcrowdedness, the barriers to reentry, not having or not being knowledgeable of what resources are available to them, and coming home and just, you know, as Dr. Lede just said, being behind the eight ball. You know, I went in at 18, came home at 44. When I went to prison, cell phones didn't even exist.
So let's talk about that transition, because one, you just said two things. You told us earlier you went in as a boy, woke up a man. What a transition.
Correct.
What year did you go in?
1993.
1993. And you got out in?
2019.
Those are 2-3 different worlds apart.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Internet was barely here.
So much. I mean, wow. I mean, you went in, I'm thinking of all the things that had changed from 93 to 2019, everything from, you know, we had 9/11 to you came out, had the first black president. You went in with 4x3 standard definition TV, come out with high definition TV, 4K.
Yes.
Just all the different things that would change in that time period. How much of it was a shock? Like, had you, like, you know, obviously you got TV and things inside the jail, so you know some of what's going on. But how much of it was a shock of like, where am I?
Yeah, I often tell people it was like I got placed in the middle of the planet Mars and told to figure it out. You know, and then realizing that, you know, we also suffer from arrested development. So although I came back into society 44 years old, in a lot of ways I was still 18.
Mm-hmm.
But there was the expectation.
You were 18. You were 18-year-old in 1993.
Correct.
Who's now in 2019.
Correct. But there's the expectation level of a 44-year-old man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, to now be ahead of a house, to, you know, try to figure out re-entering society in a society that is foreign to you, and not knowing what resources are there. You're virtually a stranger to your own family. So like, where does the help really come from when you're screaming and no one can really hear your scream?
Also, you know, a lot of people think, I mean, I guess they say that jail is supposed to be a time of rehabilitation. So one that you learn the lesson from the crime that you committed before going in. But then it's also rehab is a rehabilitation is also supposed to get you ready for the next step of whatever that is. How much in your personal experience was jail just sitting there versus somebody actually preparing you for, okay, the day that you get out, this is life?
Most of it was just sitting there. You know, there are programs. I partook in the programs. The thing with that is, without the application of lived experience, a certificate is just a piece of paper that's sitting in the toolbox. So without the actual lived experience, you know, knowing how the world is progressing and how it's transforming, like when you talk about having a successful re-entry, then I need to be kept up and made abreast of technological changes, what's going on, you know, like I can't count how many individuals come home and don't even know how to operate a cell phone. A cell phone.
How could you? It didn't exist when you went in.
That most people in the world, if they lose their phone, they go crazy. And that's how valuable a phone is. But like, it really means nothing to us because we don't even know how to operate it. You know, so it's hard.
But the world, of course, as you alluded to, is on that phone.
It's on that phone.
100%.
So I'm fascinated, you know, just the changes that you would have gone through in that time period. When you got out, what was it like for you? And then what sparked for you that you said, okay, I need to turn this time of confusion that I'm in and this lack of assistance into helping other people? What was it like for you first?
So initially I embraced challenges. So first I was up for the challenge until I realized just how mountainous this challenge was. And I was like, I was an individual who actually put in the work to prepare myself as best as I could for my return to society. So I started to develop empathy for those who didn't put in the kind of work I did for whatever reason. Some of them just aren't educationally equipped to do that. And I'm like, if somebody doesn't come alongside them and help them, this recidivism rate is going to continue to climb because they're not getting the tools and being fed what they need to be successful post-incarceration. So when they get out here, they start to panic. And then they go back to what they're used to and what they know and what they think can help them. And then they wind up back in the same situation all over again. And we keep seeing this cycle keep repeating itself. And I was like, I believe, you know, personally for me, I did so much devious and mischievous stuff in my childhood that I felt obligated to help build the community rather than destroy the community. So I set out to be the solution instead of the problem.
Once, I'm also thinking in 2019, you were a year out and then COVID happened and the world changed again. It's just like the craziness. Who did you have around you to help guide you and say, okay, this is this, this is this, this is this?
The irony in COVID was prison prepared me for COVID. I was watching the rest of the world panic, and I'm like, you got a whole house. I get that they didn't close outside, but you got a whole house. Try living in your bathroom. So like that was really an easy transition for me. Not to mention I was an essential worker, so I've worked all through COVID. But
what about getting a job? How difficult was that? Because there's a lot of people who don't want to employ somebody with any type of record, let alone have been gone for as long as you've been gone.
Right. And I often tell individuals, once you get an opportunity to get employed, like, you know, our example begins to be how we teach people how to treat returning citizens, because we're some of the hardest workers. We come from an environment where we were working for 25 cents a day. So even minimum wage is a step up. My first check post-incarceration was $58. I was so happy and proud of that $58. So just being that example of leading, you know, will open up those opportunities. But for individuals that don't want to hire individuals coming home from prison, you know, I think they're beginning to see as we more get hired. Because when I first came home, I had an issue getting employment because of my felony. But I was one who felt like I needed to be upfront about this, because this is an issue that is not going to go away. I'm now on parole for 2 years. And when the parole officer calls, I have to show up. So I would always be upfront about it. And it denied me some opportunities. But I believe that the right opportunities ended up opening, and I was able to show some employers. And then when you show employers that you can be, you're dependable, you're a hard worker, you show up on time, then you create other opportunities for others coming in behind you.
We're just about out of time here, fellas. But Dr. Lede, I think is your Jamarcus' story one is going to resonate with a lot of people in that room. What else do you want people to take away from this conversation? And then once they leave the theater, what do you want them to do?
Yeah, I think the thing that I want people to take away from the screening and conversation around the Alabama Solution at the Phoenix Theater, it's a free event on November the 9th at 4:30 p.m. Here in Indianapolis, is that we collectively as a community can build solutions that are sustainable, that are reasonable, and that will actually make our own communities better. If we do those three things, we are helping ourselves, which is half the battle, right? We have an organization in the city like Reels and Roots that are willing to do the work to put on these screenings and also the conversations afterwards at no charge to any resident of the city to come and enjoy. Thankful to our sponsors, whether it's One for Live, One for Justice, or the Validist Movement, or HBO, and then the work of the work of Reels and Roots. But I also think that people need to walk away having an ongoing conversation around the role of the community in justice. I think oftentimes we think that the systems in place will do 100% of the work to ensure that justice occurs. And I personally think that help with reentry and humane conditions while incarcerated is a component of justice. It's not just the bars, it's not just the buildings, it's not just the handcuffs, it's also humanity. It's also access to resources. It's also true rehabilitation. And I think Reels and Roots, along with our amazing partners, is positioned to ensure that conversations are had that produce progress. So thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely.
Always grateful for you, Cameron, and we gonna have a good time with the Alabama Solution, truly thinking about what solutions look like.
Screening is on Sunday, November 9th, 4:30. What's the address down there at the Phoenix Theater?
The Phoenix Theater address.
705 Illinois Street. Was that from moderator Kona, who's hiding in the corner over there? 705 Illinois Street downtown. You'll check it. That's just south of 10th Street. Really, 7th Street is where it's at. 7th and Illinois downtown. 4:30 Sunday, November 9th. Dr. Lede, Jamarcus, thank you both for coming on and continuing Jamarcus' service that you do. Dr. Lede, the service that you do every day, but then also taking what could just be a film and making it a call to action for people to get involved and do something and help in some way, shape, or form. That's going to do it for this edition of Fox 59 Tonight. I'm Cameron Riddle. We thank you for joining us. You can stay in touch with everything that we are doing on our Fox 59 Now app. Go back and watch any of these shows. You can also find us on YouTube, where you can subscribe and never miss the conversations. And then if that's not enough, if you still want some more, come talk to me on Sunday mornings on the radio on 106.7 WTLC and Hot 100.9 for my radio show Open Lines, where you too get to be part of that conversation. Until we talk again, good night.